Every day, something dramatic happens in the Caribbean that affects our lives. We'll give you the details. We'll give you the facts on Caribbean Perspective with Eddie Frederick. Here's Eddie Frederick.
So glad you can join us. Head of Trinidad and Tobago's controversial drug Susu speaks candidly with TV6 News. This story takes the lead in our 975th edition of Caribbean Perspective for Friday 30th October 2020. Details after this important message.
The hurricane season is now upon us, so we as Caribbean people need to remember to think safety and be prepared. Avoid venturing outside during a storm or hurricane, especially if there are strong winds. Rooftops and other debris are often blown about and can cause great damage.
Welcome back. Drug Susu founder Keron Charles says, contrary to an article published in a daily newspaper, he's going nowhere, seeking a truce with no one, and yes, he fears for his life. Clark spoke with TV6's reporter Urvashitarari Rupnarayan at his attorney's office on Wednesday afternoon.
I'm not seeking asylum anywhere, nor have I agreed to seek asylum to pass any information anywhere.
A rebuttal from the founder of DSS himself, Karen Clark, says he's seeking a truce with none. He distanced himself from a newspaper article which said he would exchange crucial information for some level of immunity. Mr. Clark says the article stemmed from a conversation had with him, a journalist, the police commissioner, and a fourth man.
Mr. has failed to disclose is that his part of a call, which he was part of a call I received, which included himself, the police commissioner, and another man I believe to be a police officer, but who only 2 days ago identified himself as a member of the U.S. Embassy.
Mr. Clark says certain things were said to him during the conversation.
The commissioner also told me it is not a crime for any police officer or serving member of defense force or any citizen to participate in such susus. It is not a crime for anyone to take their hard-earned money and place it anywhere that they choose to, upon their own free time.
To him, one thing seemed clear.
He was mostly interested in police officers that may be rogue.
But now Mr. Clark says the police's efforts seem to have shifted.
DSS and I have found ourselves targeted by the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service. We have now been subject to 4 police raids. They are now investigating me personally, and DSS is used by politicians like a political football. I have suffered loss of business and experienced discrimination by other institutions.
The most recent on Tuesday involved the seizure of $7.79 million. The Susu founder says he has now been targeted by members whose payments he cannot honor. His life, he says, has been threatened.
I'm guided by my legal team, and all is well, and great is the DSS.
In the meantime, TV6 understands DSS has hit a stumbling block. The scheme is now on a pause with the police's seizure. Susu hands cannot be paid and all upcoming circles have been temporarily stopped. The TTPS, we're told, has until Saturday to withhold the cash. Urvashi Tawari Rupnarayan, TV6 News.
A former National Security Minister of Trinidad and Tobago and a former Chief Elections Officer have been selected to be the Republic's observers on a CARICOM election observer mission for general elections in St. Vincent and the Grenadines early next month. The announcement was made by the Office of the Prime Minister on Wednesday. Joel Brown of TV6 News reports.
Former National Security Minister, retired Major General Edmund Dillon, is one of 2 persons from Trinidad and Tobago on a CARICOM elections observations mission for the general elections in St. Vincent and the Grenadines to be held on Thursday, November 5th. The retired Major General was a Chief of Defense Staff who was National Security Minister during the first term of Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley's PNM-led administration. Mr. Dillon served as National Security Minister from September 9th, 2015 to August 5th, 2018. He was then reassigned as Minister of Housing and Urban Development from August 6, 2018, for a period of 2 years. Mr. Dillon was not selected by the PNM Screening Committee to contest the Point Fortin seat for a second time in the 2020 general elections. In a statement, the Office of the Prime Minister said the second election observer from Trinidad and Tobago is former Chief Elections Officer Ramesh Nanan. The OPM said both Mr. Dillon and Mr. Nanan were selected by the Cabinet after the government accepted the CARICOM Secretariat's invitation to participate in the mission. Trinidad and Tobago and St. Vincent and the Grenadines are among 15 CARICOM member states. CARICOM is a regional trading bloc that also has 5 associate member states. All costs for the observer mission, according to the Office of the Prime Minister, will be covered by CARICOM member states' contributions to CARICOM for the duration of the mission from October 29th to November 7th, 2020. St. Vincent and the Grenadines incumbent Prime Minister Dr. Ralph Gonsalves has occupied that office since his party, Unity Labour Party, won the general elections in 2001. Dr. Gonsalves is seeking a 5th consecutive term in office. The online publication CARICOM Today reports that the opposition New Democratic Party is being led into the elections for the first time by lawyer Dr. Goodwin Friday. The CARICOM Today report stated in the last general elections in St. Vincent, the ULP defeated the NDP by 8 seats to 7, the same 1-seat margin as the previous election in 2010. Jewel Brown, TV6 News.
You're listening to Caribbean Perspective with Eddie Frederick.
The St. Lucian government to target relief as income support ends. Solange Alfred of HTS News Force tells us more.
The Economic Relief Program and Income Support Program both came to an end in September, leaving many uncertain as to how they would make ends meet as the economy struggles to regain its balance. In a wide-ranging press briefing on high-level meetings held with the IMF and World Bank officials, PS in the Ministry of Finance, Esther Rigobert, clarified how the government will look to provide a targeted approach at providing income support relief for persons moving forward.
So currently we have the Electricity Assistance Program, that's a form of income support. We have 4 categories of persons who will get relief on their utility bills for 6 months, starting October and ending in March of next year. And that includes all those who did get the income support in terms of the cash outlay and transfers, as well as other persons on the poverty list, persons living with disability, persons living with HIV, and so on. So this has been rolled out, and we estimate about 5,000 persons will benefit from this form of income support.
According to Rigobert, the government of St. Lucia is looking to head down the path of sustainable assistance in a bid to aid both persons and businesses negatively impacted financially by COVID-19.
We've given some assistance to Bell Fund, and as well as, like I mentioned earlier, your SLDB. That supports small businesses, micro, not just established firms, but it could be a household, an individual wanting to start a small business. They will get part grant and part loan with good terms, concessional terms, so that they can commence operations, employ some persons, and provide for their families. So when we said it's targeted, it's specialized interventions, get at specific groups within society to give some liquidity support, relief, so that they can survive and take care of their day-to-day needs.
Bolstering pre-existing social nets is also top of the agenda. That's according to Chief Economist in the Ministry of Finance, Janai Leos. He says a great starting point for the government has been the poverty list.
And that is why you have seen efforts to actually expand the number of households on that by an additional 1,000. As time goes on, we would see whether there may be even calls to expand that further. But the approach has definitely been where we have existing systems that determine whether somebody is poor, is indigent, or what have you, that we focus the efforts there and we strengthen those the level of support that is received there. So in some of our other assistance programs, we would have increased those by $100 or $200 in some instances. Let's see what the next 3 months, 6 months bring, and we may need to actually expand those further.
Furthermore, Prime Minister Alain Chastanet notes that efforts will be made to block seepage within the system to ensure that equity exists within structures put in place to benefit the poor and needy.
When we talk about restructuring the tax system in this country, so the idea that we're subsidizing rice, flour, and sugar, which is intended to help the more vulnerable people in our society, in fact, there are a lot of people who are benefiting from it. So there's money that's leaking out in the system. Our VAT rates, the idea that we're going to eliminate VAT or reduce the rate of VAT to help poor persons, but in doing it, everybody benefits from it. So what we've been talking about is adjusting those structures so that persons who can afford to pay are paying, and that money is now being made available to directly help support the more vulnerable in our society.
2,300 reportedly received income support during the 6-month period. The Prime Minister notes this figure does not represent the number of persons who qualified, rather the capacity that the government was able to afford. Solange Alfred, HTS News Force.
Guyana's Minister of Labour, Joseph Hamilton, is reminding ExxonMobil and other companies in the oil and gas sector of their obligation to secure that Guyanese workers and expatriates are paid equally at all times. Here's more from HGP's Tamika Rodney.
In the current oil and gas era, skilled and qualified Guyanese are being hired by companies like ExxonMobil, Total, and others, even though these companies have sourced expatriates to fill specific positions within the oil and gas sector. However, according to Minister of Labour Joseph Hamilton, there have been reports of a wage gap between local and international workers in the sector. As such, the minister was asked in a recent interview what his ministry is doing to address the issue of unequal pay. He pointed out that he has placed the relevant companies on notice.
I said to Exxon, I have reports that suggest that your contractors, subcontractors, whatever you call them, are bringing people into our space and pay them 5 and 10 times more money than Guyanese. That will not be tolerated. So, equal pay for equal job. Simple as that.
Hamilton, in further explaining his ministry's stance with regards to equal pay, insists that this policy must apply across the board, with no exception to Guyanese culinary staff.
I've heard people, chef out there. I mean, all of us go in the kitchen, we know when you're cutting up the meat, whoever cutting it up is the same thing you have to do. Whoever needing the flour for make bread or roti or whatever, the same thing. So explain to me why a Trinidadian that needing the flour must be paid 5 times more than a Guyanese who needed the same flour. Well, give me that explanation. So I've said to them that equal pay for equal job.
Additionally, he revealed that in his meetings with the companies, this expectation was clearly communicated to them that employees cannot be prevented from joining unions.
That Guyanese are allowed to assemble, to form an organization, to be part of an organization, and that right you and your people will not deny them. So, if people work with these companies, they want to form workers' rep organization, they must be allowed to do it. Those who want to form unions, they must be allowed to do it. Those who want to be part of existing unions, they must be allowed to do it, and you must facilitate it.
The minister highlighted that training has commenced for a number of labor officers to eventually supervise work being conducted offshore to ensure that the policies are upheld with regards to safety and workers' rights. Tamika Rodney reporting for the HGP Nightly News.
I am Eddie Frederick, wishing you a restful weekend. This has been Caribbean Perspective, a whole new approach to highlighting developments in the Caribbean. In the meantime, please continue to log on to CaribbeanPerspective.com for more daily news and more.